Hello and welcome to Tête-à-Tête, France 24's flagship interview shows 10 days into the war between Israel and Hamas. Our guest is Ehud Barak. He is a former Prime Minister, Defense Minister of Israel. He joins us from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Mr. Barak.
Thank you for having me.
This Sunday, U.S. President Joseph Biden said he thinks it would be, I quote him, a big mistake for Israel to occupy Gaza. Do you share the U.S. President's assessment?
I'm not sure that that's exactly what he had said. We highly appreciate the backing that we get from President Biden, as well as his support in both munitions and other equipment that we need in order to carry on the war, as well as the deployment of aircraft carrier, probably two of them in the Eastern Mediterranean. America is a great ally, and we don't need to have any recommendations about the operation that we have to execute. Following the kind of murderous, barbarian attack on last Saturday, which cost us the life of probably more than 1,500 Israeli, most of them innocent people, elderly and young women and so on. We have no way but to focus on the objective of the war, which is to eliminate the military capabilities of the Hamas and hopefully also his presence as the power that runs the Gaza Strip, bring it probably back to the Palestinian Authority. And I don't think that, President Biden is against it.
Right, but what would you advise? You were defense minister during two military interventions in Gaza. What would you advise? A ground offensive, occupying Gaza, hand it over to the Palestinian Authority, to an Arab state? What would be your recommendation if you were in power, Mr. Barak?
Look, basically we would all be happy if the mission of eliminating the military capabilities of Hamas could be achieved from the air, but it cannot. You need boots on the ground. You need soldiers over there to stay there for probably several weeks, probably a few months, in order to make sure that it's clean from any military capability. So there will be a military ground forces attack. But having said that, there are several constraints on the execution. Number one is the hostages. There are probably 200 hostages, probably more, and we have to take them into account. A second constraint is the question that you have raised, to whom we pass the torch. You know, 15 years ago, I was Minister of Defense. I tried to arrange an understanding with the Egyptians and then with Abu Mazen himself, that probably if we take over the Gaza Strip, we will pass it to multinational Arab force, led probably by Egypt and some Moroccan, Emiratis, Bahrainis, soldiers and so on. They will keep it for a short period, let's say 3 or 6 months, during which they will pass it gradually to the Palestinian Authority, who is, according to the international agreements, he is the formal the kind of householder of the Gaza Strip. But there was no readiness in any address to take it. Now it's 15 years later, probably there is ripeness to deal with this idea, but that's a clear constraint. The third constraint is the issue of possibility that the whole operation will spread to the Hezbollah, probably some dormant cells in Judea and Samaria, or probably even some Shiite-backed militias in the Syrian side of the Golan Heights. It's basically, this possibility is not in the interest of Israel. I would not recommend it to the Hezbollah as well, because the price they will pay will be very high. But you cannot assume that it won't happen. It can be the result of either intention by the Hezbollah to intervene, or by the very deterioration from the exchange of fighting, which happens even in the last few days. And the last constraint is the fact that a long time, the support that we have from the world, now we have almost universal support, but it, according to our experience, it erodes a long time. Where especially if we do not keep or succeed successful enough in keeping the international law and avoiding too much collateral damage. We basically committed to the international law. We don't need any preaches about the need to make sure that they are operating within the law, and that's what we are doing, but we are determined to complete the mission and eliminate any military capability of Hamas.
Right. You spoke of collateral damage. The civilian casualty toll is mounting fast. In Gaza, it's subject to complete siege denounced by the UN. But it seems Israel wants revenge, even if it means cutting off food, electricity, water. Do you have a problem with that or not?
We have a problem. The need to act by the international law creates certain constraints, as I mentioned. For example, we have to warn in advance. So we issued several days ago, also already in Monday or early Tuesday, we issued a warning telling the people, listen, each one of you who knows that in the place where he resides or place where he works, there is any activity now or in the past 2 years of Hamas, being whatever, launching pad for rockets or some lab or some munition or weapons dump or some training center, whatever. You should leave this place because this is a target and we are serious, we are going to attack it. Some 36 hours ago, we issued another warning, telling everyone you have 24 hours to leave the whole area northern of the Gaza dry river and going to the south because we are going to attack the city very heavily. So we cannot impose it upon the citizens, but we have a commitment to announce it in advance. Israel will not deliberate. That's the difference between us and the Hamas, who operates like a Daesh or Al-Qaeda-like terror organization, barbarian terror organizations. We have this commitment, but we cannot avoid collateral damage as long as people do not leave. In spite of the fact that all these 24 hours passed, you see that we are waiting for the completion of the movement because more than 500,000 already moved, and there is another several hundred thousand who have to move. But at certain point, we'll open the attack, and whoever will be there will be under risk. That's the nature of war, unfortunately.
Mr. Barak, obviously there's a lot of talk about the intelligence failure, but also there's the failure to protect Israeli citizens. I mean, in the early hours of October 7th, 22 locations were taken by Hamas. It took hours to get there for the forces. Isn't this a failure to protect your own citizens, the very raison d'etre of the Israeli state? You blame Mr. Netanyahu maybe for maybe taking too much care of what was happening in the West Bank or of his allies?
It's for sure the greatest failure in the history of the State of Israel, with an extraordinary price that we paid in death toll and in hostages and in pictures that we had never seen, probably since Nazi operation in Europe in the previous century. So it's a failure of intelligence, both on early warning, kind of strategic early warning, few weeks or few months ahead of the operation, and we failed on the tactical early warning that morning of October 7th. We failed in the operation, and we failed all the layers up to the top political leadership in the very primary commitment of a state to its citizen. Before fraternité and égalité and liberté or the right to pursue happiness, first of all, a state should protect the physical life of its people, and we failed in a dramatic way. But we are a kind of defiant species, and we know how to unite under threats. So it took us 48 hours of quite a shock to everyone in the field and even the people back home. But now we mobilize 350,000 people. We have the American exceptional backing right now. And 2 days ago, we established a war cabinet where it's not just the defense minister that basically is highly appreciated and Netanyahu, which is highly criticized for his role in it, but we added to the government added to it two politicians who are former generals. Both of them were commanders of the armed forces, and they bring into the picture gravitas of experience, of calmness, of cool-headed judgment. And I feel a little bit better, and I'm sure that the commanders and soldiers in the fields feel better, while these two gentlemen, Gantz and Eisenkot, are within a very small war cabinet.
As a conclusion, do you still trust Benjamin Netanyahu as a war leader and as a leader?
It's clear that, to me, that he doesn't have the trust of neither the public after this tremendous, gigantic failure under his watch. He doesn't have the trust of the people. He doesn't have the trust of those who are the families of those who had been slaughtered. He doesn't have the trust of the commanders and the soldiers in the field. But having said that, he is now the prime minister and he is the head of this intimate cabinet, war cabinet. So it's not for discussion now. We'll have to discuss it later. We are glad to have those two generals who might give, together with the defense minister, which is a very serious general, the three generals in the cabinet, namely Gallant, Minister of Defense, Gantz, who is one of the leaders of opposition, and Eisenkot, is certain promise that no bad orders might emerge out of this cabinet.
Ehud Barak, I want to thank you very much for taking some of your time and for appearing here on France 24's flagship interview show. And thank you all for watching it.